Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I am overjoyed to share this episode with you here today. I have a very dear friend and brilliant leader on the line with me, who I will tell you more about in just a second. But I haven't broadcasted this publicly very much, but I have had really powerful transformational experiences in ceremony with medicine in my life. And the awareness that we can get through psychedelic exploration, through being in a held container where our healing and our growth is the highest intention, can be life-changing experiences. So I'm really excited as we're walking into a quote unquote psychedelic renaissance on Earth right now. I'm excited to be sharing a expert in that field and a powerful leader in the medicine journey movement here with you today. So hang tight. We'll be back in just 1 second. It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur. Awesome. So Metsa Nihue is an internationally known healer who specializes in indigenous wisdom and lineages. He lived and trained in the Peruvian Amazon for 15 years under the guidance of the Quechua Lamistas, Guaranas, and the Shipibo indigenous people. He has since been practicing leading ayahuasca retreats and plant medicine rituals in South America and building awareness in communities from the US, Europe, and Canada for more than 20 years. He comes as the most highly recommended practitioner by many accredited scholars and leaders in the field of psychedelic study. Metsa is a Reiki master healer, a sun dancer with the Lakota Nation. He is initiated in the Bwiti tradition and ceremonies of Iboga in Gabon, and is part of the Native American Church of the Denee Nation. He is also connected to the psilocybin traditions of the Mazatec people in Mexico, and he brings these lineages and practices together as a way to understand the power of healing transmission, helping to awaken our Western culture to a collective consciousness resonance. Welcome to the show, Metsa.
Thank you so much. I feel like my jacket is smoking right now with all that introduction. That's
It should be.
super. Yeah.
It's quite a repertoire for sure. So tell us a little bit about how you found your way to the medicine path.
You know, life takes you on this mysterious adventures. And I guess as a French person, as a Westerner, born and raised in Paris mostly, and also in the French province, I didn't really feel I was fitting in my culture of origin, and very young, looked in exploration through art, music, and things that were out of the box. Obviously, also substance of alteration to have a sense of connection. And I was very fortunate to have a family pretty open-minded that made me travel in Eastern Asia. And through that cultural exposure, I really saw that there were some answers I needed to find out in other cultures, which led me eventually to land in South America. And through my own transformational journey, I got connected with ayahuasca as a potential plan for transformation, healing of my own, but also in a context where I could learn and become a practitioner. And so there was just a concourse of circumstances that made it so clear for me that it was going to be my life commitment that I just ran into that and moved to Peru and stayed, basically after a few experiences. Yeah.
Awesome. I know music was a huge factor in that as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the many different music cultures that you've integrated yourself into and what you're doing with it now?
Yeah, so, I always wanted to be a musician. Initially, I wanted to be a percussionist. I was fascinated by the Afro-Cuban music and also fascinated by the concept of trance. So through repetitive rhythm, you can open a portal and connect with energy, bringing forces and elements that also can be felt in the circle by the audience. which led me into capoeira music, berimbau as an instrument that is one of the first instrument on earth, really as a transmitter. And then I rediscovered music in the context of ceremony because in the ayahuasca circle I've been exposed to in the tradition of the Quechua Lamista, Guarunas, but mostly the Shipibo, the Icaros, or what we call the traditional chanting, is really the element to transmit the power of healing and to transmit the cultivation that the practitioner has acquired over time during his preparation, his time in the jungle, his time in solitude in connection with nature spirits. And so it's really the element of, the language of transmission. And today I have put an album out there at the metsamusic.com, and I'm really trying to educate people in the realm of the psychedelic, where the songs are from, their meaning, the different language, and how the language that is used by the indigenous people hasn't yet objectified nature. So it has this power of just naming and opening those portals of connection. There's a whole wisdom around it and a whole way of creating this connectivity, which I think for us Westerners that are kind of turning ourselves back in the desire of connection, collective, it's very powerful to connect to.
It is. Yeah. I can remember the first time that I sat with medicine and ceremony, and it was almost like I could perceive the different kinds of portals that were opening, or the different kind of jobs that the songs had to guide us through this journey. And without knowing any of the words to the songs, of course, they weren't in a language that I spoke, but there's real serious magic that can happen through music. And being someone who follows bands around the country to have, transcendental experiences of bliss with the music that I love, it's no surprise to me that that there are songs that can guide us through all kinds of experiences and take us to where we need to be, to heal us, to bring new awareness, to realign things so that we can focus on what's necessary or required to move forward in our lives. So as we're having this renaissance, so people are out there, medicine journeys and ceremony are being talked about more widely than probably ever before. People are traveling to go have these experiences in Peru or with indigenous cultures, or many of them are even doing it in the States. Some really important factors are, I think, worth talking about, which is preparation and setting and integration. So would you tell us a little bit about, when people are thinking about going and having these experiences, what are the important things to consider or to keep in mind or to pay attention to before going on a journey like that?
Yeah, totally. We are definitely experiencing today in our Western culture, mostly the US, Canada, but Europe is catching up. This whole psychedelic renaissance and a lot of opportunities are rising also in the legal application of different substances, with substances that are not necessarily from an indigenous culture, but that are, oriented in healing modalities to respond to the difficulty we're facing as a society with depression, addiction, PTSD, and MDMA, ketamine, and psilocybin are now being legalized slowly, and a lot of clinical trials are, in place in the US, and it's a really good thing. Though for me personally, my exposure to the substances has been through indigenous lineages and the discovery of a culture of wisdom, a culture of connectivity, and a real knowledge of the pharmacopoeia and the whole interaction there is when you amplify your capacity of felt sense, and how you can orient your attention and intention to engage in the realm of the psychedelics and really have access to information about yourself, but also go in places and also help one another. When you become an apprentice and a healer, you actually use the medicines to do diagnosis, to look in someone's body, in their spiritual realm, in their emotional realm. And so it's quite extraordinary to think that you can somehow get high, though I don't really like to use that term. And it's good for you, and it can also bring information about what's going on. So I would say, it's a little out of the box. And for me, it's very important to prepare your body first and foremost when you want to do this kind of experiences. I think we tend to think today in the psychedelic renaissance a little bit as substance, in the sense of the next experience or something, a consumerism, a menu of all those different options. And every ceremony, every substance has its own context. And so to root yourself in that context and think about why you want to take such substance, what is the lineage behind, what is the practitioner's like, what's the reputation of the practitioner, especially for ladies, have a safe environment to make sure that you can let go and, be totally protected and explore, what you need to explore. And that starts by preparing your body with an adequate dieta. When you drink ayahuasca, you insert something in your body is going to boost your senses, but also modify a bunch of stuff in terms of digestion, in terms of processing, in terms of connectivity. And so the plant itself has its own system and certain foods they like, certain foods they don't like. So you want to be informed about that, have a healthy diet. And so your body can be the receptacle for the substance and process in the best way possible. Then you want to prepare your mind, and do a bit of meditation, learn to center yourself, to be able to let go, to turn down the music or the buzz that there is in the mind that we are all exposed to, and learn to be quiet in nature, in silence, and really dive into this process of letting go. And you realize that actually in the silence, there is such a fullness of sound. There's in the space, there is such a fullness in the air. So when you go into the realm of the medicine, then you can center yourself and really pay attention of the space you're in. And the medicine has this incredible tool to really make you sense and make you feel your environment and make you feel the energy of interconnectivity that we're always in, but somehow we're not necessarily aware in everyday life. So to practice that is a good thing. Then also part of the indigenous heritage and their practice today is a sentiment of reciprocity. Everything is energy and as consciousness and is alive in our environment. And so to engage with nature, to engage with water as a sacred element of life, to engage with the mountain as, entities that have also their own proper identity and energy, the Star Nation and Mother Earth as, our grandmother, without falling necessarily in a corny kind of statement, but just to make some offering or just to voice and recognize, there's a relationship. So you start to build this language, you start to build a connection that then gets amplified and can respond to you, especially when you're in that realm of experimentation. So physical, emotional, and spiritual, is a good way to prepare. And also you can just come to the metsaseries.com and have access to a bunch of information and free classes that I've put online for the public to have access to this kind of information.
There's a course called We're All Related, which talks a lot about those connections that we have to each other and to the elements around us. And also a course called Dieta, which is about that preparation, about preparing the body and the mind, which is awesome. We've got a lot of amazing wisdom that's free to access. So definitely go to metsaseries.com and check that stuff out. So with that said, that there's a lot of things that we can do, what are some of the ways to tap into that connection maybe outside of ceremony? Because I know some people think, oh, I need to sit with the medicine again, or, there can be this block between bringing that stuff back into your life or bringing that lesson or learning. So what are some ideas or insights you have around integration and actually bringing the wisdom back into your everyday life with you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, particularly in the course We All Related, I cover a lot of that. Part of my interest is actually to create bridges between the experience that we have that can be very introspective, but also expansive in our sense of connectivity. And if we feel that everything is connected, where does that all go when we go back to life? And how do we relate to people around us? How do we go back to an environment where a lot of people are just in their inner world, separated, not necessarily looking for connection unless you really belong to a community that cultivate this kind of wisdom and teachings. And so I provide a series of exercise that I was kind of describing a little bit before, where you can really engage with the elements that are part of everyday life, like water, air, fire, and earth. And it's just a matter of reaching out and having conversation, have a little ritual, and build kind of a muscle of communication. At the beginning, it might feel a little awkward and odd, and I know that myself, I was kind of idealizing, coming from the world of legends and imagination of how it would look like to have the little people of the forest. Are they really existing? Is this just like some sort of dream or some child tale? And then finding this culture in the Peruvian Amazon that really respect and are connected to that invisible environment that is part of our kind of collective consciousness or heritage in the story and tales of the West. I got to experience some of those energies by just engaging outside of the ceremonial context and really putting my belief and my care in honoring and acknowledging those forces and elements. And eventually, you feel that there is a response that doesn't come from the mind, it doesn't come from, a projection, but really from a felt sense that as you become aware of those forces, they also become aware of your awareness. It's kind of a funny statement, but you have to kind of develop a new muscle of communication that, is not necessarily rooted in our culture per se, in our education as we grow up in the context we come from.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I love the reminder of practice. If you want a sacred experience of your life, begin practicing treating your life as if it is sacred and treating your environment as if it is, and your relationships with other people and also with the surroundings, your environment. It's not that complicated to add that depth of respect and relationship to your life, to all the aspects of your life. I'm always really grateful for that reminder. So one of the really amazing things, you do a lot of amazing things, but one of the amazing things that you've been working really hard on is bringing support to indigenous medicine families and leaders. Would you tell us a little bit more about the Sacred Ways Foundation that you started?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. As a Westerners, I feel very fortunate myself. First, you had a passport with no need of a visa to travel. It's not the case for my brothers and sisters from Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, and other countries where there's a very strong indigenous heritage that is alive. And I received a lot of teachings from them, and I was able to bring their voices through my own outside and share it in the West. And it was a good benefit for me, for my family. I was able to educate a lot of people and created workshops and opportunities. So I always felt an obligation to give back. I always felt an obligation to create a sense of support. There's a lot of people that take advantage of this wisdom just for their own. And I think it is part of our obligation as Westerners to care for a culture that is disappearing due to the fact that the Western world is more and more, developing and imposing its kind of value system on consumerism and capitalism in those communities. And also there's a huge impact with the development of different religions. So they're losing a little bit their traditional and heritage. And the youth is not so much interested in picking up what the elders have to teach. So by seeing Westerners that are supporting the culture and bringing back, some funding, supporting women that are mostly the one who care for the family and care, of the financial aspects, we can really bring that awareness. And today, with the psychedelic renaissance that is happening, there's more and more investment in the pharmaceutical research, in clinical trials, and all that is very scientifically rooted. So when I start to observe that, even though I always been a persona that was more connected to the ceremonial aspect, I never wanted to be too vocal and too present in conferences and podcasts. And it's starting to change as of today. So I decided with my wife to create the Sacred Ways Foundation, which is basically the extension, the formal extension of what we've been doing as a family ourselves, supporting the elders, supporting the people that carry lineages and that sometimes don't even ask for money for what they have to offer, particularly in the United States with Navajo Denee and Lakota Sioux and other indigenous group. You just can show up with an offering of tobacco and asking for a ceremony for yourself. But yet cars don't run on tobacco and kids don't get dressed with tobacco smokes and tobacco prayers. They need the funding. So this foundation is really about creating a bridge and an awareness that we need to defend and we need to protect and support those elders, those lineages, the young generation, for the culture to be preserved. And it's part of our obligation. So we want to create a basic universal funding income for those families to not have to bustle all the time and hustle to survive.
Yeah. So you can learn more about that at sacredwaysfoundation.org if anybody is interested in seeing what they're up to and seeing some of the families that are being supported and ideally making a donation or contribution to keep these traditions, these ancient, lineages of wisdom alive and thriving ideally. And that is a really beautiful way to sort of support the future of humanity, I think, is to support those traditions that have the power to change lives and heal the wounds that have been created by some of it by just our Western culture and how it's hugely skyrocketed in technology and industry and separation, that to bring more support to the things that are creating connection and creating consciousness and awareness is definitely worthy of some financial support and contribution. So thank you for doing that for all of us, creating that support system. I'm really grateful that you're doing that. You are an amazing musician. I've listened to your album many times, and I know that you have your drum right next to you. Is there any chance you'd like to share an ikaros with us?
Sure, I can tune in a little bit and bring that voice forward. Thank you for asking. I have this platform, metsamusic.com, where I've performed some of the ikaros in a studio, and we're about to release also this live ceremonial concert that is really good for people to really feel the vibration of the song when you're under the influence of the medicine, because it really boosts the capacity of transmission. But here I can, tune in a little bit and share some of the Shipibo language and articulation. They don't necessarily use this hand drums, which is more like a sweat lodge drum, but I like to kind of also merge things together. Kapa kapa yombano Campo medicina man hanki kano abano Mundo bencho ayono Natambo akampayon, chekwa isambo abi. No mama tum punto ya. Wentenda mamu anda benchon dan don bi. Campayon chamani. Kano Mendes Enama Koshama Kinda Hani Bendese Oyon Ponte Jonatana Pada Yo Shamani Chikwa Isambu Abi Dan Don Kanobo Maton Ponte Jombana.
Beautiful. Thank you for
A little
that.
improv here, just saying, the power of the energy of the medicine people from the invisible are coming forth, and the world of the mystery is getting open with the tone, and the birds of colors that sings to the love are coming to the ladybirds to open their hearts.
Beautiful.
Very poetic.
It really is, and magical at the same time. Yeah. Awesome. So we've told people a couple links to go and check you out. What's the best place for people to follow the Metsa Medicine Magic and tune into what you have to offer in the future?
Sign up to our courses at the Metsa series, .com. And, you will be invited to our future free courses. And if you want to tune in the music, it's metsamusic.com. So you can have access to the album. And eventually we're going to have everything merged together because it's really all interrelated. Sacred Ways Foundation is really about supporting the indigenous people and bring awareness of their needs, who they are. Today we're supporting 5 different families from different traditions. And also we want to grow in that to be able to reach out more and more people in the future.
Awesome. So we will put the links to those in the show notes of this episode. You can also find Metsa on Instagram. We'll put that link in the show notes as well. You've already shared a lot of wisdom, of course, on this episode, but are there any last words of wisdom that you want to leave people with today?
What can I say? I think we don't fully know what it is to be a human being, and there is so much more to explore in our capacity of connection to go beyond what we think we know. So stay curious, stay tuned to really the potential of who you are and how we can engage to one another, and engage from a place of not knowing, from a place of the heart, from a place of curiosity, and from a place of the shared field, the energy space that we live in, that is alive, that has a consciousness, and that can unify us beyond our sense of separation. So stay tuned, stay curious.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Metsa. It's been
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
for having me.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated at all, or you have somebody you think would love to hear it, please forward it along to them. And we'll catch you next week for another episode of Tactical Magic. Have a good day.